to Rutherford. Welcome to our George III vineyard. What you're sitting on right now is genuine Rutherford dust. Those of you that know of Andrei Chelichev made that term famous, I don't know how many years ago, when he said it takes Rutherford dust to make great Cabernet. And since that time, I think we figured out that there's probably some other places to make great Cabernet. But anyway, he made the phrase popular. Andrei Chelichev, for those of you that don't know, was the first winemaker hired by George Latour, who was the founder of Beaulieu Vineyards, just down the road here. Andrei was responsible for the legendary private reserve Cabernets that Beaulieu is known for. He accessed fruit for those wines from several different vineyards in the Rutherford area. One of them actually was this vineyard. At the time, obviously, it was owned by Beaulieu, and Beaulieu numbered their vineyards, and this was called BV number 3 at the time. We bought the vineyard from Beaulieu in 1988. We would have loved to kept the name BV number 3 and just changed the BV from Beaulieu to Beckstoffer Vineyards, but we had some trademark violations there. So we named it Vineyard George III, George being the French version with an S, after George de Latour, and the third in honor of the fact that this was BV number 3. So this wasn't named after a British king in the Revolution or anything like that. It's named after, basically it's the legacy of this spot, which was the Beaulieu Vineyard, original vineyard here. So this is kind of the headquarters of our Napa Valley operations. We do all of our administrative functions here. We keep a good portion of our equipment fleet here. It's a 250-acre vineyard, all Cabernet, as Andrei would have preferred. And it's planted to a variety of clones. If you were to wander around the vineyard here, you'd see a variety of clones, a variety of trellis systems, a variety of row orientations, really to correspond with the different soil types that we see on this ranch. For 250 acres, you'd be surprised at how many different types of soil pockets and stretches that we see here. So we've tried to organize our blocks and our trellises and our clones to grow what grows best on different types of soil conditions. So today we're here to talk about harvest. The four of us will be talking about sort of what we see out there. And I'll start by saying that something that everyone knows here, I think, is that we're late. We've had a cool growing season. Right now in our vineyards on average we're probably about 10 days to 2 weeks late. Normally we would start harvesting white wines the end of August. It looks like this year will probably be the second week of September, where we'll start harvesting white grapes for still wines. And normally we would look at about an 8-week harvest. So if the weather conditions continue like this, rather cool, and we had an 8-week harvest, we would be into November when we finish the reds. My opinion, and I don't have a crystal ball, is that it's more likely to get warmer as harvest proceeds. If that's the case, it may end up that we may start late, but we may not finish as late as we start. Which means, if you think about it, it's going to be more of a compressed harvest. That's just my prognostication there. Which could be a challenge for growers like us, especially having a lot of vineyards. You've got a lot of crews out there. When you have a compressed harvest, that means that you've got to basically get all the grapes off in a shorter amount of time. We've faced that situation many times, last year being a good example when we had a lot of rain in October, where we had to get a lot of the fruit off very quickly in October. But it was done. It basically means you just got to work. You got to get more people in here, and you just got to work a little bit longer to get everything off. This year, there's some definite pluses and minuses associated with having a cool season and a late season. And that's kind of what I think a lot of people have been interested in. Is this a disaster? Is this like a no problem? Let me give you the bad news first, or the potentially bad news. As you go later into November when you're picking, you run the chance of running into some bad weather, namely rain. Last year we had significant rain in October. If that were to happen this year, we would be in a really bad situation. Last year was a very unusual year. We've had many years where we've had long Indian summers and we've had no rain in November. So we just don't know what's going to happen. But there is a risk as we go later that we will run into some cooler weather and possibly some rain. The biggest problem with rain, as most of you probably know, is rot. If you get a prolonged rain event a week or so, basically rot can develop in the clusters and you can get bad flavors, and wineries aren't very happy with that. But anyway, so that's the real main risk associated with a cool growing season. There's a potential benefit associated with a mild season, and that is that It's actually somewhat better to have a very easy, gradually warming season than it is to have big heat spikes and cool spikes. When grapes sort of mature slowly and evenly, that gives the opportunities for the flavors in the grapes to develop along with the sugar content. If you have an exceedingly warm growing season and warm harvest season, a lot of times you can get very high Brix measurements. Brix is a measurement of sugar in the berries. You can get very high Brix before the flavors have a chance to catch up. And that leads to a phenomenon that we call hang time here, which means growers have to leave the fruit on the vine longer, where the Brix measurements are going higher and higher as the berries start to dehydrate, in order to get the flavors to catch up. In that sort of situation, you basically end up with fruit that some people may say is overripe, but it's very high sugar, which could lead to some high alcohol wines in some situations. Now, wineries have a way of dealing with that. It doesn't necessarily mean you're always going to have a high alcohol wine, but you've got a bigger potential in a very warm season for higher alcohol wines. So the real benefit in a season like this, if you can avoid the rain, is that we may have very nice flavor development. We may have some very nice berries to deliver to the wineries, and there's really the potential for a nice vintage. We have had many years that are considered cool climate years, where we've had very nice wines. I think 2005 was really the last one that was considered a cool climate, and I think John, you brought some 2005 wines to taste today. I think you'll all agree that they're not suffering from the fact that they had a cool season. The other thing I should mention before, I was talking about this vineyard here. There are actually some wines on our table over there that are produced from this vineyard. So if people want to go over and snatch one from our table there, you can kind of get a taste of what we can produce here. So there's some other things that we've seen other than the timing of the season this year. A lot of people ask about crop size. We have, I think on average, it varies by variety, but I think on average, this looks like maybe average to slightly below average crop. It's a little early to tell. At this point, we're just getting through veraison. We can obviously go out and count clusters. We can look at the size of the clusters and get a feel for what the crop size is. But over the next few weeks and months, those clusters are going to gain size and weight. And you really don't know the size of the crop actually till you pick it, because the clusters can actually be not very big, but can be very dense and very heavy, leading to a big crop. You can actually have some long clusters that are very open, that don't weigh a lot. So even though they look big, they don't have a lot of weight, and that also leads to a smaller crop. So at this point, it looks like we have an average size crop, but really we'll know a lot better over the next few weeks as the berries size up. One of the things we have been noticing that's associated with the cool climate and also with crop size is that, especially in the Cabernet, we've seen this phenomenon. We're seeing some smaller berries in our Cabernet throughout the Napa Valley, and we're trying to figure out why that would be. Usually when you have a wet spring, it usually leads to bigger berries because the vines soak up more moisture and they plump up the berries a little bit more. We think the reason is because during bloom and during set, we had cool weather. And during that cool weather, usually what that leads to, if you have cool weather during bloom and set, generally we've seen that leads to some smaller berries. Doesn't always happen, but that's a phenomenon that we've seen. There's a linkage there. I'm not a viticulturalist, so maybe someone else can give you exactly the viticultural reason for that. But in our Cabernet especially, we've seen some smaller berries. Again, that could be a very good thing. Smaller berries means less water in the berries, less dilution of the flavors, so you could have some more concentrated fruit. Again, leading to a situation where you're going to have some very developed, very nice character in the final wines. The other topic that people like to talk about or want to talk about, which is very relevant this year, is mildew. We had a very wet spring and a cool growing season, which is the ideal situation for mildew. Mildew likes to grow in cool, wet climates or microenvironments. We do have a higher risk of mildew this year, but there are ways that we deal with that. And so far around here anyway, we haven't seen any big mildew problems. We have pockets where there are more serious problems than other areas. But really you deal with that in a variety of ways. First of all, you can pull leaves on the canopies, allow more air circulation, more heat, more light within the canopies, which mildew does not like. Another thing you can do is if you do have infected clusters, you can go and drop them. You just cut them off, let them drop on the ground so they don't infect the rest of the vine. And then obviously everyone's got their spray programs, and you have to be very diligent about your spray programs. Do it on a timing that will basically reduce the potential for more mildew. So those are the, and I'm sure the viticulturalists that are going to talk later can give you a little bit more, but those are the big three things that you can do to fight mildew. Obviously, we've been doing them this year, and they've been effective. So really, that's our main perspective on the growing season. I wanted to touch on one other topic, and that is the labor situation this year in the Napa Valley. Not a big issue, actually, because from what we can see, we haven't started harvest yet, but what we can see throughout the growing season, we've had plentiful labor. We haven't had any problem getting crews. Not surprising to us. Really, in terms of if you're an agricultural worker, if you're a vineyard worker, this is about as good as it gets in the Napa Valley. We talk a lot about sustainability here, and the Napa Valley Grape Growers is a big proponent of sustainable farming and sustainable operations. Sustainability is a word that everyone hears, and mostly people associate that with farming practices, but sustainability goes a little bit beyond that. You also have to have a sustainable workforce in order to really have a thriving business here. And in order to have a sustainable workforce, you've got to have your workers coming back every year. It used to be that farm workers in the Napa Valley were considered unskilled labor. As we continue to improve the quality of our processes and our product, our work becomes more sophisticated and more specialized. So we have to train our workers. They become less unskilled and more skilled workers. Once you train workers to do these specialized activities, you don't want them to leave you the following year. So you have to have working conditions, compensation, benefits to keep them coming back every year. Napa Valley Grape Growers does a labor survey every year where our members are surveyed on their pay rates, compensation, benefits, working conditions, and all of that. Members give us a lot of data. We send it off to someone at UC Davis that compiles that data. At UC Davis, they have the ability to compare that data with data from other farming operations in the state and throughout the country. And year after year, it comes back that here in the Napa Valley, we pay higher wages and we give a higher level of benefits to our workers than any operation throughout the state and throughout the country. So that's very encouraging to us, and I think that's one of the main reasons that we don't have a problem with labor here. The way that we work is that during harvest, for instance, we have year-round crews that we'll draw on first. We have seasonal crews that will come during the peak seasons like harvest and pruning that we draw on next. And then we'll have walk-on labor that will come up and knock on our door and want to work for harvest. And so we sign those people up. Usually that's adequate for what we need here during harvest. But sometimes, especially during a very intense harvest, we will have to hire contract labor that will come back and bring their own crews. And usually that's for a very short amount of time during a peak period. But generally we rely on local labor here. So we know our people, and they come back to us. They know us. They know the process. They know how we work. They know our vineyards, which makes our whole operation a lot easier to run. We're not retraining people every year. In addition to the benefits and the pay rates we pay here, Napa Valley, or the Napa County, is the only county that has a county-wide assessment dedicated to farm workers. These fees are paid by vineyard owners on a fee per acre basis, and it goes towards subsidizing housing for farm workers and meals for farm workers. As far as I know, there's no one else that does anything like that in the state or in the country, as far as I know. Also, Napa Valley Grape Growers plays their part. The grape growers put on a series of seminars specifically for farm workers, including brown bag seminars in the field, as well as educational seminars in Spanish for farm workers and managers on everything from management skills, leadership skills, career building, as well as technical and viticultural skills, which again is a benefit for people that work here. Not only can they earn more money, get more benefits, but they can also improve their careers and improve their education in viticulture. As far as I know, no one else does anything like that. So anyway, that's my 5 minutes. I'm available for questions, I think, after we all speak. So I think next is Mary.